Hi everyone. Yeah, before going into the presentation, I just want to say this is my first visit to Israel and I'm already liking this place because wherever I go in the streets, I see a lot of people doing something, having some fun. So it's very lively here. So, and also I see a lot of traffic jams or what you call it as traffic jams. So if you want to see the real one, you should come to Bangalore. So I'm not missing home at all. Okay. So the other thing I want to say is like uh, I work on the engineering side and we keep hearing all these stories okay, this customer is asking for this feature or he's having this trouble. So but we are most of the time behind the scenes. So now I can see okay, who is the customer who is having these problems. So that's the other thing I am liking here. Okay. So today I will just go through some of the roadmap we have. I will not be covering all the details in all these dimensions because that will take a lot of time. So I will limit myself to few areas here. So so Srini already talked about the AI we have. So I will not be covering about the AI. But so we are doing this vector search and we will be building more indexes, new capabilities into our vector search. So, so Srini already covered that part. So the other one I will briefly touch on is this cloud. So we are, cloud has two components, right? One is the DBaaS and the ACMS. So in both these departments, we will be adding more capabilities different building schemes and things like that. And so the vector search and the graph capabilities also will be added to the cloud. Okay. So the other two areas I will be going a little bit deeper is how we are working on the simplification. So simplification of how to use Aerospike and so what are the new stuff that is coming out of the core server itself. Okay. So yeah, so the simplicity I will be splitting into two components. So one is the observability and what is the other, we call it as manageability. Okay. So, I don't want to just tell what is coming, but I just want to tell what happened very recently and which you should know. Because you may be using Aerospike for many years and you may be stuck with some troubles and you should know what are the new things which came out so that you can rethink about your architecture and see what you can use. Okay. So in 7.0, a few months back, we completely redesigned our in-memory architecture. So the new in-memory architecture is going to be very similar to how we store things on the disk, how we defrag, how we flush. Everything will be very similar to what we do on the disk. But more importantly, all this data that we store in memory is going to be in the shared memory. So what this means is that you can restart the nodes. If you are doing a planned restart, you are not going to lose all this data. So if you are used to upgrading the nodes by restarting, you may be waiting for the migration to finish, which may take minutes, hours, potentially days. But if you use a new in-memory layout, or you just upgrade to the new in-memory system, the future restarts is going to be warm restarts. So that means that all the data which is already in memory is going to stay there for process restarts. Okay. So what is the advantage of it? When we migrate the data, we don't need to migrate the whole data or all the data that belong to this partition. We just need to migrate only the delta and it's going to be to the order of few seconds or minutes. Okay. So along with that, you get all the other things that we already have in our disk, which is compression, encryption, stuff like that. Okay. So the other thing I want to touch on is this bin limits and set limits which were hurting some people. So people had these data modeling schemes where they may want to generate set names or bin names based on weeks or months, right? So they may ultimately hit this limit. So earlier we used to have this bin limit of 64K or 64,000 bins. Similarly, we had this set limit as 1023 sets. But now the bins are going to be unlimited. So you can rethink about your data modeling. You can recycle your bins a lot more faster than what you're used to before. Okay. And the new thing like we did in our 7.1 release, like which released just few weeks back, is something called an LRU cache capability. So as you know, like who are using Aerospike already, Aerospike expires records only based on the last update time, right? So when you write a record, like you can say, I want this record to be there in the system only for 30 days, right? But there are a lot of use cases like where customers use Aerospike purely as a cache. So all these customers like who write this record and who say like, I want this record to be only 30 days, but let's say you're reading this record also more frequently. So you don't want that record to go out of your system, right? So that's what like you would expect from a cache, right? So most recently read records, you want it to remain in the system, right? So what we did is like basically internally these reads, if let's say they are like at the end of the life of the record and you're doing the read, so we will internally convert into a touch. So you don't need to change anything from your application side. So you can just enable this LRU capability and your most recently read records will be remaining in the system. Okay, but yeah, of course, like there is also a price to pay. Like I said, the read will be converted to a write. So there's a little bit of price you have to pay for it, but you get this feature without any change in your application design. Okay, and keeping with the tradition of like Aerospike, like we always like care about performance, right? And we try to squeeze as much performance as possible. So I'll not go into details, but like we enhanced performance capabilities, like when we are doing our disk flushing and query capabilities and all. Okay. Sorry. Not working. No. Okay.
This one, right?
Yeah. With that. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, so like what are the new stuff that is coming up, right? So this, we are going to add like multi-record transaction capability. So, so we have like a lot of use cases like where customers try to use Aerospike like where they want to operate on multiple records at a time. So the classic example like you read in the textbook or blogs is like you want to transfer like $100 of like money from account A to account B, right? So you either want the entire effect of the transaction or no effect of the transaction. You don't want to be in a state where money moved out of A but did not reach B, right? I would say like this is a boring example because we were talking about one event management company in India. So they were like having an interesting problem. They were saying like, if like you're trying to do a group booking, right? So let's say a movie or an event. So if you're trying to book for like 2 people, you don't want to be in a situation where you only have like 1 ticket, but not the other one, right? So imagine like, so like you're trying to book a ticket for you and your spouse and like only one of you got it. So tell me which one is more important problem, the bank transfer or the booking of the event? So I would say booking of the event. Right? So the way we are designing this multi-record transactions, like this will be application driven. So what I mean by that is like in the application, you can write logic saying when the transaction will begin and what are the operations you want to do and when the transaction will end. So I just want to compare with the batch write capability that we have. So in the batch write capability, like you would say like these are the 10 records I want to write, but you are saying all these 10 records upfront, right? So when we do our MRT stuff, like you don't need to do that. So you can say that I want to begin the transaction. I want to read these first 2 transactions. I want to do some operation in the application side itself. So maybe these 2 records you want to validate some logic, whatever, and then decide you want to update a 3rd record, right? So all of this transaction can be controlled from the application side. So and when the application decides like it want to go ahead and commit, it will say I want to commit, and or if let's say based on some checks you want to abort the transaction, you can say no, I don't want to proceed and simply roll back. This is standard stuff like what you will see in JDBC drivers, things like that. Okay, so yeah, and 1 star. Like currently it is only supported for SC namespaces, because we think like people who care about like this atomicity like would also care about all the guarantees that you expect from an SC system. So right now like this is being built only on top of SC. Okay. So the other stuff is one of the limitation we have in XDR today is it will ship only few versions. So with a good intention actually. So you may not want to ship all the versions of a record to a destination, right? So let's say some record is getting updated like every 2 milliseconds. Maybe you want to see an update only every 100 milliseconds, right? It is configurable today. But like there are actually some systems and use cases like where you don't want to skip any version, right? Especially like if you are using this for auditing or something, you want to have all the versions of your record. So XDR doesn't do that today. So, but we will be enhancing XDR to actually ship all the versions, okay? So based on this capability, what we will also be building is something called point-in-time recovery. So if you have all versions at every point in time, you can say, I want to go back to exactly, let's say, June 1st, 10 o'clock, right? So we will be building this backup service as well, where you can restore to a certain point in time based on this capability to ship all versions. Okay, so the other thing like we are also working on is enhancing like our second indices. One of the thing where we are in advanced stage is basically something called second index on expressions. So today like you can only say that, okay, I want to get all the records like whose bin value is equal to 10 or like which string is equal to something like that, right? So what we want to go towards is like some databases call it like functional indices. Some people call same thing index on expressions. So you can actually specify any logic that you want. So you can say, I want to compute, like for example, a total compensation for an employee. And I want to see the employees whose total compensation is greater than some number. So you can always like do this on the application side by creating a third bin, doing all this computation on your application side. But what if you don't want to, right? Because you may want to change only the base pay or a bonus. You don't want to rewrite a fourth bin for it. You can simply go ahead and just update one bin. And the rest of the thing, like the server will take care of it. So, so we will be building this capability based on our expressions functionality. So if you have used our expression functionality, it is actually quite elaborate. So here I was giving like very simple examples of doing some addition, multiplication, but you can also say index only records, let's say where the employee is living in Israel, and do, let's say this computation only if it matches that criteria. So you can specify that in our expressions, okay? So, so that concludes the topic on the server side. So I'm going to talk a little bit on the simplicity, which I'm splitting into two parts. Like one is observability and manageability, right? Observability is like you just want to see what is happening in the system. And like we had this thing like for a few years now, but like it's not actually, it didn't get much attention. And in the last 1 year, actually we invested a lot in the observability side. And that should help a lot of users to not reinvent this on their side. So people may be implementing their own Prometheus, Grafana, whatever it is, but you don't need to do. So some of the screenshot, like actually Zohar already showed in his demo. So I will be covering a little bit more. So first of all, like now, like earlier we used to cover only all these metrics and all only for the Aerospike server, but not the other components. So now we are expanding to all the other components, and any new thing that we will be doing in any of the Aerospike components, we'll make sure that we collect the metrics, we have dashboards for all these components, okay? And when we are doing these dashboards, like you just have some dashboards like which are just overview dashboards, purely informational. But like we also want to make it easy for somebody who is new to Aerospike, like to know what is important when you're doing something, right? For example, like when you're upgrading your cluster, like when you're doing a rolling restart, if you are new, you may not know what to look for, right? So we are trying to prioritize those things and say like, okay, for this use case, yeah, you can use this dashboard, okay? So I just have some snapshots. So this is what we call it as a multi-cluster view. So if you specify like the coordinates and all like in the Prometheus configuration, we can actually show like in the world map like which cluster is where and whether that cluster is healthy or not. So yeah, in this example, like both the cluster are not healthy, and within the cluster, what is not healthy, right? So here like you can see, so that all these 3 nodes in the cluster right now are not healthy. Within these 3 nodes, like which namespaces are good and which namespaces are not good, right? So here like this picture is indicating that namespace level health is okay, but something is wrong with the nodes, right? So now like if you have to dig like what is wrong with the nodes, so you can go further into these alerts and see like what are these alerts which is qualifying this node as not healthy, okay? So the other quick example of rolling restart, like I said, when you're doing this rolling restart, like what you need to keep track is whether there are any errors happening in the system. Are you running out of space? Let's say you're shrinking from a 50 node cluster to a 40 node cluster, right? How do you know you're not running out of your space, right? If you are new, if you are experienced, you know what to look for. But if you are new, so this dashboard should help you. So the other things like we will be taking forward, and the observability dimension is expanding to other monitoring systems. So right now, like we are working on a Datadog. So the other dimension we'll be working on is the log analysis. So, so you have these traditional things, right, like Fluentbit or Splunk, who can export the logs. So we will also be supporting the OpenTelemetry, like where you can upload these logs to whatever your traditional systems is. So with support with OTel, like one good thing is you can upload this information from Aerospike exporter to a OTel collector, and that collector in turn can forward to whatever your end system is, right? And the analysis like can be done in Elasticsearch or Splunk. These are existing systems. Like we just will like have a guide about like how to consume, how to create indexes, create your own dashboards, etc. Okay. So now going to the manageability aspects. So what we already have, okay, a little bit before going to manageability. So you can see the roadmap on the observability is not actually very elaborate because we have worked on observability quite a bit, but on the management side, like we have not done a very good job, right? So like our next steps, like we are going to focus more on observability to make it easy. So on the observability side, like already the Kubernetes operator is there. It has been there for many years. But so these are some of the most recent enhancements. And if I'm not wrong, a lot of these things are driven by AppsFlyer. So thanks for the feedback. So, so in the Kubernetes operator, one of the current limitations is if you want to do any dynamic config changes, any configurations, in the previous operator, what it does is it will restart those nodes wherever it is applying these new configs. But yeah, in retrospect, that's kind of dumb, right? So what we do now is like basically we apply this configuration and also make sure that we persist that configuration. So like in any future restarts, like the new config will get reflected. Okay, so similarly, batch scale down. So like if you are using rack-aware kind of clusters, so you can actually shut down multiple nodes at a time, right? So our operator was not supporting that, and we did enhance that capability where you can say, I want to take down these 4 nodes in one rack because you know for sure that this copy is going to exist in a different rack, okay? So similarly, pod migration. So whenever like you want to add nodes or remove nodes from your Kubernetes cluster, you can say that, okay, I don't want Aerospike to use this list of nodes. So today you can do like 1 node at a time, but like you may want to say that, no, I want to remove all these 4 nodes. Like please prepare migration and like move everything out, okay? So the CLI tools, like you have been using this, so we just keep up with all the latest server metrics, configs, everything. So what is upcoming? So yeah, so we have solved this like thing, the manageability for the Kubernetes, we make it easy. But like what about people who are using or not using Kubernetes, right? So in a cloud environment or a bare metal environment. So what about those guys? And we do have a lot of customer base where people use it outside Kubernetes. So we are working on kind of borrowing all the intelligence that we had in our Kubernetes and try to use it outside. So this operator will manage the life cycle of the nodes and all. So in the future, like we also want to add capabilities like where you can add new nodes also dynamically, right? And so the other big thing, the last two items actually are like big items, like I mentioned about the point-in-time recovery, where you can recover to a certain point in time, and the backup service. Like both these components are actually being built by the Israel team here. Okay, so what are the capabilities we have in the backup service? So you can actually schedule your backups, right? So today, like you can use our AS backup utility and all, like you can say I want to backup this, but let's say you don't want to run it during your day, right? Like mostly you would run these backups when your load is low. So you may want to run this thing during your night, right? So you don't want to be awake. You want to be awake and run this jobs in the night. So the backup service, like you can just automate this one, and you can say like when do you want to do backup, when do you want to do your full backups, and how frequently you want to do your incremental backups. But let's say you realize that there is some major activity that you are going to do, and you want to take a full backup. You can say, okay, no, I want to do a full backup now, so that if something goes wrong, right, you're sure that you can go back. So we do support all this storage to both local and AWS S3. So yeah, so the backup service like supports all filtering capabilities, and it is REST driven, so you can actually automate like using your REST API. So that's it from my side.